Hunter and prey. There was never any question which one we were. Our ship darted through this distant arm of the galaxy, always barely one step ahead of our pursuers. The captain consulted the star charts, always keeping our path true. The weapons officers primed their stations, always prepared for a fight with our adversary. I cleaned kitchens. I polished bulkheads. I tightened bolts. Most of all, I tended to the warp drive, more ancient than most of the ship. Engineering was not a high prestige posting. That said, no one among the crew had ever talked down to me in earshot of the captain. This ship was a temple, and keeping it running was worship. Outside Gamma Zebulon, we caught a bad signal. All systems fried. Some midshipman had downloaded a bad file. We struggled and floundered in the orbit of some Cyanocean world. Out here in the boonies, we were easy prey, and our adversary found us still under sublight impulse. Weapons went crazy, preparing for the showdown. The captain was unfazed. She asked me if we could force the drive. I had engineering tune it careful, so I said yes, but only this one time. We bolted out of that system, our pursuer hot on our tentacles. The warp drive groaned, but we caught the right quantum foam tangents and we made it out. Mostly okay. We arrived weeks later in Procyon Q5, venting something nasty from a tertiary holding tank. Helium-free? Or maybe xenon, it was unclear. To clear it up, we needed to spacewalk. Never fun under stress. Of course I led it. Nothing but gangly tentacles. I didn't fit the spacesuit well, but it was all we had. The captain was my double. She handed me a wrench and I tightened. She handed me a battery and I installed. The sun shone brightly on the desert world beneath our current orbit. Uncharted. You ever wonder who made our ship? Maybe they're down there. She might as well have been screaming into space. Engineering had long drunken debates, but of course the creators of our ship were a mystery. I played it straight. They existed between 740 million and 1.3 billion years ago. They are no longer active on the galactic stage. Probably they don't exist anymore. Even when our race bought this ship, it was a hand-me-down. They were older than old before we were us. The captain stared off into space. She said nothing more. We installed the new tank and made to exit the system. It turned out it was xenon. Out in the quantum foam between systems, something broke. The computer said, transmission. That wasn't something that made sense. Our press gang opened the warp drive in transit. Always dangerous. And of course it exploded. I was right there with them when it did. Bright flash, metallic clang. Engineers hit the deck. I ran through the roll call. 5 injuries, no deaths. The warp drive was somehow still running. Basically, impossibly reliable. I approached the now open access panel and noticed there were physical mechanical gears running the state changes between warp states. Ancient tech, I said. Hand me a wrench. The uninjured engineers around me groaned. We bolted into the starter motor and started it physically, rotating the bearing in place like some kind of piston engine. Impossibly simple. The oldest of failsafes. We made it out of warp with no further injuries. I couldn't get the 5th gear to seat correctly, so I filed down the teeth and installed a bypass. 4 gears for a warp drive. Who knew it might hold? Who knew warp drives had gears at all? In the Z9 system, we nearly met our end. We came out of warp 5 standard lems from that roiling blue supergiant. And there, where our senses were blinded, our opponent let loose a probability ray. It hit either too long or too short. It either missed us by too much or not enough. The ship was either slightly safe or slightly unsafe. Weapons went crazy. We fired everything. Kinetics, lasers, coherent particles. None of it got within one likely standard unit. Not a single muon arrived at the destination. Our adversary was too quick, too prepared. Z9 was too bright. The captain looked at me halfway through the barrage. Get us out! The warp drive screamed. It banged, it knocked. It made a dun-dun-dun sound that sounded really bad. Then suddenly where Z9 was, there was black. Then every coolant pipe burst. Then all the power died. Then all emergency lights went red. Then blue. Then bright danger green. The computer whined. It informed us we required repair. We were apparently still within warranty. Everyone laughed. The funeral laugh. It was either 6 hours or 49 days. Still slightly under the effects of the probability ray, it was impossible to know which. Of course, it was probably a fixed finite value between those two values. As my second-in-command stated, probably only 48 days. That felt correct. We appeared later in the Krelmer system. All reserves expended. The warp drive nearly shot. Our pursuers certainly still in pursuit. The captain looked at me. She raised an eye tendril. I sighed. We can't survive that again. She nodded. Put your estates in order. The crew grew glum. The captain was blunt. Hard to blame her. The warp drive was an odd, despicable thing. Mostly mechanical, old. Super efficient, yet like 1 billion years old. Better than anything we could make. Best of what we could buy. A large symbol, 2 crossed ovals in an oval. They stared at me. Who made you? I said. The drive said nothing. Then it slipped a gear and the whole ship shuddered. Sorry, I said. I tried to quiet it. And in between tightening bolts, a car slipped out. The AI computer helpfully translated the parts it understood. We were overdue for a scheduled maintenance inspection. I laughed until I cried. In 40 Alpha, we met our match. A brilliant, gleaming cruiser. Our adversary from the sworn enemy. It broadcast on an open channel. Hello. Goodbye. Simple. Witty. The crew shook in fear. The captain said simply, I wish I could come up with crap like that. It calmed us a little. 40 Alpha was a little red dwarf. Hardly bright enough to read a book by. The enemy cruiser gleamed brighter. We felt the story was over. But even then the captain yelled, Stations! Stations! Weapons straightened out their tentacles and got ready for the last glorious death ride. I put a hand on the warp drive. One more. It clunked, and then suddenly went... The captain looked at me. My expression was dead. We require scheduled maintenance. Elevate! Charge up! Steady! Get ready! The captain didn't falter. We let loose everything left. It ran off the cruiser's shills like rain off a hot forge. It returned fire, a paltry display of its least impressive weapons. And at that moment, everything in our ship became on fire. Nearly dead. In pain. I dragged myself across the command room. Anywhere, I said to the nav computer. The warp drive yelled. It writhed. A system appeared. I hit yes. Sol, said the computer. The warp drive obliged, as if commanded by an old friend. Or lover. The captain was wounded. Weapons were gone. Fire and blue-green blood. The adversary prepared another round, and then we were deep in the quantum foam. 1,000,000 times the speed of light. Sol was a standard sequence star. It was on its way out, almost a red giant. Only a few billion years left till then. No planet surrounded it, only a ghostly shell of habitats and shards. 1,000,000,000,000,000 of them. A true Dyson swarm, to use the ancient word for such a fabled object. Immediately, all our sensors said, politely but firmly, that we were not allowed to be here. This was the final resting place of an ancient precursor race. Leave, said all sensors in unison. Leave, 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 leave. The adversary had followed us here, but even here they looked on in awe, powerless. The captain shook her eye stalks. It's hopeless. We must leave. Any fight is more hopeful than one with these elders. I was about to agree, but a light on the dash with the warp drive came on. Orange. Vaguely mechanical shaped. We required maintenance. The elders. The fellow race long since retired from the galactic stage. Hiding in their Dyson swarm. They spoke again. Leave. You have no business here. The captain gestured. Navigation began to issue the order. The enemy cruiser sat deadly, waiting. No! I yelled. I cast my voice to the crew, but also over the waves across space to the elders. Our warp drive requires maintenance. The captain stared. The crew gaped. The cruiser backed up a single standard unit. It was well known in galactic etiquette that you never crossed an elder race. Not in their home. What? Said the elders. Who are you to demand assistance? No shields could keep up their broadcast. Sent at full volume. Everyone winced. Everyone but me, head of engineering. I made my voice as steady as I could. Our warp drive is a Toyota GR1109F. The previous owners purchased the extended plan. We are afforded an unlimited warranty in perpetuity. We are severely overdue for a scheduled maintenance inspection. We request a mechanic. The elders didn't speak for a full standard minute. Even the captain put her head in her tentacles and breathed slowly. Finally, the elder spoke. These terms are still valid. Prepare for assistance. And the cruiser left us. Outmatched, defeated. Our antagonists done for now. The elders let us within the Dyson swarm, and the warp drive at that exact moment died completely, and basically exploded. We struggled to keep the ship running until the elders, the creators of our ship, could fix it. Which of course they did. Free of charge.